Can anyone catch them, do you think?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, unbelievable. We didn't expect that.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the FA Gunners podcast. So we are here back to discuss the Old Trafford defeat and preview the Everton game that's up and coming shortly. We've got Arun back with us. Hi Arun.
Hello.
And we have got Suraj back with us. He was there when I wasn't here, so it's nice to have him back. I wanted him back. Hi Suraj.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And we have got our resident expert Deepak back with us.
Hello.
Hey, so we'll start right off the bat with the United game. I know, looking at all our faces, people will know that we are not very happy with the United result. But Deepak, just as a reaction to the United game, right? Like, what is your first reaction when that defeat happened?
First reaction, I was kind of pissed and
not really pissed. Is it?
it's a mixture of pissed and disappointed. I wouldn't say like win was up for the grabs, given that it's Old Trafford, but still the way they were playing, United, and also how not we were playing. We were decent enough, like the run of games we had, and one Liverpool loss doesn't change the fact we have been playing well, or let's say better than United at least. So I thought we would at least get a point or even like nick a win somewhere, like somehow. But since it didn't happen, I was kind of pissed and disappointed. Also, the way we played, we didn't have a great game either, and United didn't have a great game either.
Yeah, that's the point, right? Like when I
so that's what is the kind of improvement you show? You go to United, play well. We didn't play well. Leave United. Don't think about United at all. The way how we played was disappointing. So that's what I'm pissed about. So we go to United and we say like, okay, we are playing United. They are not playing well. So what you should do? You should turn up like even a notch more to grab 3 more points, because top 4 was up for the grabs. It's kind of a psychological advantage. We haven't been in top 4 for such a long time, and West Ham lost that week, and we could have gone into top 4. So that's what I was thinking about. Okay, let's win and let's get a top 4, which would give like more of a psychological advantage to the players that, okay, we have something to show for right now.
Usually, sorry, Deepak, to cut you off. Usually, Arun, I seem to be the one who has a better, positive attitude towards Arsenal in most cases. But in this game, I feel that everyone else felt so much more positive about Arsenal before this game that they just dropped so much, after the loss. Because for me, like what Deepak was mentioning, right? Going to Old Trafford and showing that you could play is kind of the like penultimate step. Like going to Anfield and winning, or going to Etihad and winning, would be the last step that our team could achieve. In that sense, going to Old Trafford and showing a performance is the step before that. And people are expecting Arsenal to do that right now. Doesn't feel natural to me. Could you understand what I mean? And so this loss is, although it's disappointing for me, feels that online fan base is kind of exaggerating the whole loss at Old Trafford in a way
it is not just like because how it is, like it has been like due to how United has been playing at home. They haven't been like not even like good. They have been like plain average or like even poor. So that is the kind of improvement you want from Arsenal
Deepak,
as a team.
But Deepak, it's still United. It still has Ronaldo. Ronaldo might not have scored in 4 games, but he could still come in and score at any time he wants. He is still, it's his 800th goal.
Is still United. So what kind of improvement Arsenal has to show? We can beat this United. That is the improvement Arsenal has to show. If they can't do that, if it is still United, you think United is a huge team, let's say right now. That's what your point is. It is still United. So if we can't beat that still United, then what is the progress we have made till now?
Yeah, and
That
See,
is the point I don't get from you. Like, what is this still United, still United? We beat them last season.
Yeah,
It's,
but
if I can just like, I'll try to take
Yeah.
a stab at this, right? So,
Sure.
sure. I mean, like, I understand, I completely understand, Deepak. In fact, I even side with it. This game was definitely there for the taking. United are a team that have not been performing well. In fact, like, if there is a team right now, not right now, before the game, that was probably in more chaos and more confusion than us, that was United, which means that they were not at the same level as us based on form. I understand your concern based on reputation, but I guess that's exactly what the team did. The team gave them more respect than what they deserve. Arsenal, we as our players, we on the pitch, we gave them way more respect than they deserve without actually realizing that they were in a worse situation than us. It could be Old Trafford, yeah, it could be a home, an away game for us, but this game is no different from another game that we would have gone and played anywhere else. You know, like if you were to see, like, yeah, United finished second last season. Based on that reputation, yeah, they are a big team. They finished top 4, and yeah, it's a big thing. But the way in which the team should be looking at it is, how are they performing this season? How are we performing this season? It was obvious that based on what was going on, we were at a definite better position than they were. It was just a case where we failed to completely capitalize on what we could. We had like all everything was perfect, in my opinion, was perfectly set for us to win. And as Arsenal always do in these situations, when everything is perfectly set up for a win, they lose. And that's exactly what these guys did. I don't know if it is the pressure of all the expectations on these people, or the fact that they knew, there were so many slip-ups around, and just like a win here would take them to top 4. It is a growing team, we can say all that, but this inability to, like, take the pressure on, and in fact, like, get a result at a team where the 3 points were there for the taking is what worries me. And yeah, I mean, like, for me, it's, you could have at least gotten a point. You could have at least gotten a point.
See, okay, Suraj. So I understand these 2 point of views. Okay, it's just that it doesn't get into my mind in that sense that United would come into the game more pressured than us. When they are coming into the game, they are going through a very rough patch. So they would try to play their best, and us not taking a point at United when United are trying. United were not trying. They got rid of Ole. Maybe that was I don't know whether it was a thing or not. So I don't understand the reaction to it. I understand that it's disappointing, but I don't understand that everything's lost reaction to it.
Okay. No, see, I see it this way, right? If you take the game was of a very low standard, and that is true from both teams, right? One thing is, United definitely are not at their best, are not coached at their best. They were there for the taking. And yes, I'm upset because of a loss. I would have taken a draw happily at Old Trafford. With the history, legacy, and all of that aside, this is a different United side. Yeah. One thing, why I'm disappointed is because we didn't show up. Not because, saying, okay, United completely tactically outplayed us. All their attacks suddenly started firing when they were not firing for the last 6-7 weeks. We got outplayed. No. If we showed up with our bare minimum standard that we set on the field against our winning run, that would have got us the draw, right? One thing we did was, there were individual mistakes that cost us the game, okay? It was a game tactically, well, in reflection, that the team that made lesser mistakes basically won. And it's not a team that played extravagant football, or the team that completely broke through the press or made line-breaking passes, had an improved XG or big chances, none of that, right? But one thing I see as a blessing in a way, or something that is, I'm able to forgive a lot more, is I see an Odegaard slide tackle. I don't feel as bad because it's not Xhaka making it, it's not Mustafi making it, it's not Kolasinac making it. It's a refreshed team, it's a young team. I am a bit more forgiving of that because they are growing and they have shown signs of discipline in defense, discipline in possession, discipline in shape. We have complained so much about our defense in the past, not having shape, not losing out of possession. Sure, we make those mistakes, but there is a sense of solidity and structure, which is why I am not so angry saying, okay, it's the same mistakes again and again. But the reason I guess I'm disappointed is they were there they were there for the taking. All I wanted was a bare minimum performance without mistakes. Not to say we have to tactically, because player for player, let's be honest, at least in the attacking third, they're better than us. Player for player, current. Okay, on paper they're better than us. They thrive off moments of individual brilliance.
Yeah.
And we don't have that. See, they have no tactics. The way they were bailing Ole out every week is because they have moments of individual brilliance. And whether it's Bruno Fernandes, whether it's Greenwood, whether it's Sancho, whether it's Ronaldo, you need only one moment / one shot from outside the box, and they just completely turn the game out. We don't have that. So all we had to do was avoid mistakes, and that is something we didn't do, which is why it cost us the game. That's how I sort of objectively see it. Sure, it would have made a statement, and I think I agree with Deepak saying, okay, we have kind of gone on a run of beating teams below us. The next question we can ask ourselves is, can we do this at a United who are kind of at the similar level in terms of performances? I'm not going to say squads and players. In terms of performances, they're on the similar level as us and almost like our peers. Can we show something there to say that, okay, this time this team is going somewhere forward? That's how I objectively see it in terms of what I'm happy about and what I'm not so happy about or disappointed about, essentially.
That actually makes sense, because I mean, now that you put it in that way, yes, of course, it does make sense. But Arun, when the team news came out, right, we saw the whole switching of Sambi Lokonga to Elneny, which instantly got groans out of the fan base, right, and deservedly so. We know what Elneny is capable of and everything. But at the end of the day, it's not Elneny who kind of messed up the whole situation, right? It was Partey who messed up the whole situation. So talk me through the whole process of Arteta came out and said that he chose Elneny because of last year's Old Trafford performance, which seemed completely ridiculous because it was last year. Now we are a completely different team. So talk me through that decision of choosing Elneny over Sambi or even Maitland-Niles, because the last game Maitland-Niles played, he was the man of the match.
Yeah, the very next game he came and he did something stupid. So that's probably one of the reasons why he wasn't taken in.
But Elneny has played 45 minutes, less than 45 minutes, if I remember it properly, in this season.
Yeah, I mean, like if you ask me if the logic of playing him because he had a great game last season at Old Trafford makes sense, no, it doesn't. I do not see any reason why that should be the case. But I do see why he might have brought Elneny in. It's probably because of what we've been crying out for. The fact that Partey's influence in games has been weaning out. Like it seems like teams have sort of figured him out. They know what he's capable of doing. They know what he can do within those tight spaces. So teams are conventionally not putting any effort on marking the other midfielder in the center. All of the effort goes into closing Partey down, which means that if you close Partey down, they know that our attack is just done there. We're just going to keep passing sideways. We're just going to go back to passing to the back, and the donut of sadness starts all over again. So that's what the teams have been trying to effectively do, and they have been doing that, So the reason why I thought Elneny was probably bought was to counter that and give more freedom and space to both Partey and maybe Odegaard to get involved in the game as well. Now, the logic behind this, in my head, looks sound. Forget about last year's performance. It looks sound. But the fact that Partey had such a stinker, which made Elneny look like prime Xavi or Iniesta.
he never looked prime Xavi or Iniesta.
No, I mean, that's how bad Partey's performance was. Elneny did not have a good game, but when you compare that to what Partey was doing on the pitch, it was like Elneny was prime Iniesta or Xavi. Mind you, Elneny was having a stinker as well, but that's how bad Partey was.
And the thing is, sorry to add to that, right? I think Arteta realized this at halftime. He really did. Because the reason I say that, the way we play, right? I mean, we have one sitting defender who picks up the ball from Ramsdale, usually when we play from the back, and then he progresses the ball. And the other midfield out of the double pivot drops into left back. And that's what Xhaka does. That's what a Lokonga would do, for example. What usually happens is, Elneny was asked to sit in the first half, if you've seen, drops to left back, Partey progresses with the ball, kept giving turnovers, kept losing the ball, kept mispassing, right? if you observe the latter half of the game, 70th minute plus, when we were kind of chasing the game, El Neni was forward and Partey was kind of sitting back, but we were chasing the game. And El Neni was trying to make an incisive pass through the lines, but all he was doing is Nuno Tavares back to Ben White, back to Nuno Tavares. So, he realized it was just not Partey's day that day. And he kind of switched roles at halftime, if you see the positioning, but it just didn't obviously work out. And Partey's stinker, like Arun said, just made El Neni look really, really good, because all we wanted, I guess, was just neat passes that just reach a player. I know that we have to make risky passes to go convert a goal, but even the basic passes weren't going through and led to turnovers.
Expecting El Neni to, do the needle of the eye pass is suicidal in itself.
And no, I mean, like, you don't have to expect El Neni to do that, but he's been brought into the team to enable Partey and Odegaard to do that. And if Partey, forget about eye of the needle passes, 5-yard passes were not reaching players. Out of, I think, like 13 or 15 passes that he attempted, half of them were not reaching the players. And then if that's the case, then there's whatever you do, whatever logic you try to add to El Neni's inclusion, if you have things like this happening, there's no justification, right? What can you say? I got El Neni to do this, but this has not happened. So do I blame El Neni? I don't know. I mean, like, this entire concept is
this is exactly where Deepak is laughing quietly at the corner, thinking like my CLL Xhaka would have been the ideal candidate there. And,
of course, definitely. I think that's clear and obvious now. As much as we've been like slating Xhaka and like, calling for his head, wanting him to leave and all that. I do not know.
Look at Deepak, how happy he is.
It's vindication.
I've been crying now, like from the
No, but
start
that's true though. Like, we have always been talking about all these younger options like AMN and like Sambi Lokonga. The experience factor is huge, and it's games like these where the experience comes up. Like, obviously, games like these where when you want your Alba, you want your Partey to step up, the presence of Xhaka would have definitely made a huge difference, or even the presence of a Kieran Tierney, So when your experienced players do not do well, that's where you like see how, especially like you mentioned, OT is still OT. United are still United. The crowd is still as violent and vigorous as they could ever be, especially against a game like Arsenal. In these games, you want your senior players to step up. You want your senior players to be present, like fully aware of what's going on.
Okay. Arun, so let me stop you right there, because I want to ask Deepak that question about the midfield, right? It seems, Deepak, right, like especially with this game, and you are allowed to gloat about your Xhaka being the best midfielder prediction today. But the thing is, Arsenal midfield has never worked under Arteta.
Yes,
it has never worked. Like, I don't remember a game where our midfield worked under Arteta, and that is partly because of a couple of reasons which we could give, like players missing, this, that, and someone having a stinker. We could give all those reasons, but this game especially, when Harry Maguire stepped up to the midfield, that was a move that could have turned in our favor, right? It's not one moment he did it. He did it multiple times when Harry Maguire was in our attacking third. Yeah. So that was a moment that Partey is tailor-made for. That is the moment he should take the ball, turn it into a counter. And we have two prime candidates.
I was furious when I saw Maguire that high up the pitch. I was like, I couldn't believe that.
Yeah, and we have two prime candidates for counter, and that is Aubameyang and Martinelli on the pitch. We could talk about Aubameyang later. we'll talk about that's why he jumped in and said, like, we'll talk about Aubameyang later. But we'll stick to Partey in the midfield, right? We have brought him for this, and no matter what Arteta puts in, what the tactics is, Partey is an experienced player. He should bring something to the team on the pitch, which is not happening.
Yeah, that's known, right? We have been saying this for even like last 2 months. He hasn't been doing even the bare minimum which is expected out of him. So, which is like not disappointing. It's like very disappointing. We thought we are signing like a midfield general in Partey. Like he would like just improve us and take us back to the days of Fabregas or even like Cazorla or even after that. But that hasn't happened. Like that is what it is.
Coquelin, you
Plus,
mean?
like,
No,
yeah,
the-
Coquelin.
The thing is, if Partey is able to play like Coquelin, I would actually be happy right now, given what he's doing. We thought we were getting a Rolls Royce of midfielders. It turns out it's Denilson in disguise. Why would we have to spend 45 million in current market to get Denilson again? You know.
But again, right? Like Deepak, coming back to you, this is just a game where Partey could have done a lot more. And
Yeah, he could have. Yeah, I think like
Not he could have, he should have done a lot more. Why are you saying he could have? He should. This is the game for him.
okay, could have, should have, would have. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead.
plus starting El Neni also didn't help, I believe. Like we saw stats, El Neni had more forward passes, but we know what kind of forward passes that was. And that is also one thing. Yeah, you told like I still remember in the group you were saying, yeah, Arteta would have started him for defensive solidarity, and I sent a message, nothing like that. He started him because he won last year. I just sent it as a fun, but I never believed Arteta would say that in a press conference.
Maybe he's reading our
And yeah,
group
like
chats and stuff.
Partey like had absolute stinker of a game. People were going gaga over in that group for that one pass which he made to Martinelli, which led to the goal. It was just a routine switch.
Pass. You're expected to
rotate switch
make
to
that
the wing?
pass. Yeah.
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 That
I mean-
that's the game he had. One pass, people are going gaga. Oh, what a pass to Martinelli! Like what? It's just a switch over to him.
Yeah. And I think, see, one of the things why it cost us defensively, right? If you observe the game, Fred was running into the box like so many times, and that doesn't happen because not only we were not good for going forward and playing out at the back where Partey was giving the ball away, our midfielders did not track back our defenders in the right way, and they were caught out of possession. Right? Forget the last minute counter attack with Lingard coming in and Partey being the last man. Forget all of that. But in general, I think the way we play, right, when we turn over a ball, the possession, everyone is so out of position that our midfielders don't track back, and we made Fred just look really good, although he made a terrible mistake at the other end of taking De Gea out. Right? You can't be. It's criminal to allow him to come into the box right by the goal and do a back flick for them to allow Bruno, who hasn't scored in 13 games, to come and score a goal like that. That's like a Ramsey-esque goal coming from outside and putting it in, and you can't let two midfielders do that. It's criminal. And
First 30 minutes, it was like a competition between Partey and Fred. Who was the worst player?
Worst midfield.
exactly.
In
And
fact,
like
it was
Fred
throughout the
improved.
game. It was like that, yeah. But Fred, as much as good that he did, he was also messing up things at the same time. Partey was just messing things up. He wasn't doing anything good. So it made Fred again seem like prime Iniesta,
But right, like the goal about Suraj was making the excellent point about the how the Fred was taking out De Gea, and United fans were crying that it was not it was unfair that we were awarded that goal. We had two decisions that could have changed differently, like that could have changed the game completely differently, right? One is that one which came at the end in our favor, which I think is the right one. The other one was Tomiyasu taken out in the box by Maguire, right? Which was not even. I mean, I understand because even the penalty that they awarded to United, the on-field referee didn't see it. He said no to it, and then VAR asked him to double check, and they gave him the penalty. Why didn't VAR do that for our thing?
It's United and it is us. Obviously, they don't go to VAR.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the VAR and Arsenal, I guess. See, the only thing is, I would say, is the first goal, right? It's a goal. It is within the rules, and the accident was caused by the player. The ref didn't blow the whistle. But I'm not going to lie that if that happened against us, I'd feel really bad. Like, I wouldn't complain. I know it's within the rules, but I just feel bad. But I guess VAR is not a problem. VAR is perfectly all right. The only thing is the consistency of, across the game. And I think that's what there could be small gaps, which is what is my personal opinion on VAR anyway. You can have a game where they use it extensively and have a certain set of rules, where in another game it could be completely different. But as long as it stays consistent throughout the game, then it's fine. But clearly, so the Maguire pull and Tomiyasu could have definitely changed the game, like you said. I know, because the complexion of the game would be completely different.
And I think like we are at a point where we cannot point out these decisions anymore. We know that they are going to go against us. It's probably as a handicap that you have to go into the game thinking about these things happening and account for these things as well. I mean, like we probably are the club that complains the most, moans most about the refereeing decisions. You can argue that we are the one who wants to get affected the most, but then I don't see the point in actually moaning every single season, every single game. Like we have to, and if this has been recurring, we have to find a way to not stem this. It's not outside of our control, but like counter this and account for this and play, thinking that we're probably going to be getting a bad decision. I do not know what else to say.
Yeah. Deepak, do you want to chip in on that point? Like VAR being VAR?
VAR as a concept, it is nothing wrong with it. Like it's technology. It's how they are using it is the problem. Like it's in the hands of the human. Like that referee has to make a decision like, oh, I will tell this to the on-field umpire. But how it's used in Premier League is ridiculous. It's like clear and obvious error by the referee, you go and like stop him. The one with Tomiyasu was a clear and obvious error. He was blatantly pulled back. So it should have been like awarded as a penalty. For the first goal, which I think it is within the rules, I think it shouldn't have stood. The referee should have blown the whistle, but he didn't blow. They gave us the goal, so take it and go. So I think those two decisions evened out. So I wouldn't like just blame it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's round off the midfield discussion and move on to the attack. I'll start with Suraj regarding this, because I know what Deepak's take would be when I start with him with Aubameyang. So I'll start with you regarding the attack, right? We have a kind of a situation here because we have potential goal threats in our team in Aubameyang. The next would be Lacazette, and then the next would be Pepe. And all three are not in form or preferred or not closer to the first team or are not showing that they are somewhere in the plans for the future. So
yes,
where do we go from here?
Interesting question. And firstly, before we talk about what we want, what we could have had, what kind of strikers we can go after, I guess we need to think about now and saying, okay, how are we going to carry through the rest of the season, considering we might make no transfers. Eddie Nketiah wants to leave as well, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot Eddie.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, I love Aubameyang. Don't get me wrong. He's absolutely, prolific goal scorer, won us the FA Cup, carried us, all those things. Yes, credit in the bank, good. But the modern game requires more than pressing and more than work rate today. And the reason I say that is I look at top teams around us. You look at a Chelsea, you look at a Man City, you look at Liverpool. They're way miles above us, correct? Now, there is obviously a huge portion of the fan base who are like, Aubameyang, is completely washed off and, there's nothing left for him. There's a significant portion of the fan base that also say that, he's giving the work rate, the goals will come. He's pressing. No one presses like him. The goals will come. He's pressing. He's enabling those around him. Still defending him. The way I see it is that pressing in modern football is a bare minimum. It is a minimum requisite coming into a top 4 Premier League side in the modern day, right? And especially that also aligns with the philosophy of football we are trying to play. You've seen Arteta on the sidelines constantly asking players to press, constantly move forward, constantly close in on players and enforce a mistake, right? I am saying that just by pressing, by closing in on the goalkeeper is not enough from a striker. That is not enough today. And he needs to be getting in better positions. He's one of our taller players, should definitely be better aerially. He cannot link up play. He cannot hold up like a Lacazette does. So it's like answering your question, right? Auba and Laka are two halves of a striker who don't do half the job for us when they're in the team. And when they're together,
I think if you're somehow able to combine them to create together and create a hybrid.
The Dragon Ball Z thing where they
yeah.
Basically. But In summary,
Well,
right?
this I don't know if this is like
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z range or like the Powerpuff Girls range, where you combine everything in a lab.
Combine
and get
everything
it
into a-
together. Yeah.
Yeah,
Look at us,
exactly.
30 plus people talking about Powerpuff Girls in an Arsenal podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Well,
I was just saying, in summary, just to close it out, just pressing and work rate is not enough. He needs to be getting in better positions, contributing better with the ball, driving at players. He doesn't drive. He runs off shoulders. Fine, that's his way of playing. Do we cater to that? I know that we can talk about tactics, system problem, all those kind of things, but he should be offering more as a striker, and that is simple as. There's no two ways about it.
I get it. So I'll come to Deepak on this, right, for Aubameyang. So I get the point that Aubameyang needs to do more. But the other side of the things is like, even I see the point of, the others who are saying, we're not giving anything for Aubameyang. Like, for example, in this game, I don't remember us giving anything to Aubameyang. The last game, I understand completely. He missed a sitter, right? But this game, we are not giving anything. There was no ball. There was nothing that I remember us doing something and then Aubameyang not delivering on the pitch. Do you get that?
Partly yes, but he should also make those runs. He's like kind of static or goes towards the wing, and that opens up space for Martinelli, which I can understand, but he hasn't been working a lot. Let's say he presses, but his presses are like kind of pointless. He does start the press, but others doesn't follow, which makes him pretty much like useless pressing. So that leaves him like open, and then the team, the opposition just plays around us and goes. I still like feel Auba of 2 seasons back would have like scored that goal which Martinelli passed to him, that weak shot he had towards De Gea.
Yep.
He has completely lost it, like plain and it's simple.
I think
He isn't the old Auba. Like
you mentioned that Aubameyang shot as Reece Nelson shot, right?
Not me. It was Shashank. Yeah, but what it was the truth, right? See, if it was Auba of the FA Cup heroics, it would have been at least a tough save for De Gea, not just like a soft shot towards him. So basically, he has lost it, and partly it's due to the system as well. I don't see a player like going from that top level of a game and suddenly falling back to this level.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's no single contributor to this. I think completely agree.
But Deepak,
Yeah.
I mean, like now like you mentioned it's partly probably due to the system, but the system is what the club has subscribed to, right? So this is the system that we are going to be taking going forward. I do not know, like, how can you? The thing is, like, how can you attribute him missing 6-yard goals, open goals, to a change in the
That's what
system?
I'm saying. It's two things. Like, not just he doesn't miss 6-yard goals in every single game. It's 1 or 2 games. Other games, he doesn't even have like a sniff at the goal.
He's not even making those runs though. Yeah.
Yeah, even if he makes those runs, we are not like, we don't have the players to pass also. Like Odegaard has been out of the team like for last 6 or 7 games.
Yeah.
And Laka has just to plug something as a tactic. It's not like a proper, okay, yeah, this is how we are going to play and Laka is going to do that. It was just another way for Arteta to try something and see if it works. It worked for 2-3 games and then it stopped. So
Yeah.
that is the point where I'm actually.
yeah, we have been talking through this the entire season, right? We haven't been creating anything. We say we have improved defensively. Yes, we have leave these big games against all these top teams. We have like clipped a lot of clean sheets, which is partly due to like Ramsdale's heroics as well. Not just the defense has improved, but we are the second worst in creators of chances, just one above Norwich, which is like criminal for Arsenal as a club, how we were brought up. So I don't know, like something is wrong. I cannot like exactly pinpoint what is going on. So
Yeah,
I don't know, this cannot be sustainable, right?
So
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
Deepak.
for
Suraj, go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Suraj. Yeah.
No. I was just saying, I want to really add to that, right? See, one thing I see is every striker who scored, let's say, top club strikers who strike 20 plus goals a season, every striker misses sitters. Okay, it's a common thing. It's a striker thing. Every few chances they will miss. You have the most of top strikers not finishing a 1v1 or something like that. But why does it appear so magnified when it's Aba? It's because we actually don't create that many chances. If it was one every 4 chances we created and he put one out of that and didn't put one out of that, it doesn't appear so bad. Because we don't create that many chances, and the one chance we get, we're not efficient with it. And if you see Arteta, he mentions a lot in his post-match, pre-match press interviews of being efficient while keeping the ball. So that's about I don't know if it's about creating as many chances, but the chance you create, we have to convert. He talks about efficiency a lot, but clearly we have gaps in that. And Auba's misses appears more magnified because we don't have enough chances where, okay, he's taken a couple, he's hit the bar once, he scored once, and then he missed one. We wouldn't be having this conversation here. That's what
I think it also appears magnified because in a team of 20-year-olds, you would expect the senior most player to be the one performing, especially if he's been scoring goals 2 seasons before. So that's another reason why it seems like, whatever. But it's true though. I do not think it's a bad narrative. It is, he's not scoring goals. He's not adding any value to the system right now. He's not adding any zero value to the team.
Exactly, Arun. So that's the question.
Attack
right?
as a whole is completely non-existent or disjointed.
Disjointed, yeah, definitely disjointed, yeah.
See, Chelsea doesn't have like a goal scorer who has scored more than 3 goals in Premier League, but still they have scored around 36 goals. So you don't need like a proper defined striker. Even Harry Kane, who scored 20 goals, is still struggling. But every team has a secondary player who scores goals. Like for Tottenham, it's Son. Leave Liverpool, they score everywhere.
For us, it's Gabriel. Simple as that.
That's what.
Yeah,
and he's not even a starter. And he's not even a starter.
Yeah, exactly. Our 20-year-olds are our 20-year-olds are highest scorer, and it's crazy.
but okay. So Arun, you made an excellent point about being the senior player. He has to step up.
I know. Right? I always make excellent points.
but again, right? Like so, we are missing that part a lot, especially on the pitch. When we were talking about the Maguire situation. That's a situation that a senior player on pitch should be able to read and convert that into a weakness for the opponent team. And when Fred is making those runs, that's a situation a senior player, no matter what. Like if you remember the Arsenal of the old, Henry, who is a forward, would come back and say to the 2006-2007 team to look at that player or look what this person is doing. That was a young team too, but there was an Henry who was able to make that. And there was a Fabregas who was young, but still, understand that on the pitch. We are not, are we still expecting, this team is expecting answers from the bench, as in like from Arteta right now.
We are saying this is a young team, right? If you see the 2006 team, it was as young as this team.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a team which was made of superstar. It was just Henry.
Yeah.
And it was Fabregas, Rosicky, everyone was around 23, 24.
Yeah.
So we can't keep just giving the excuse that this is a young team.
No. I think I'll take this here. Okay. So the thing is, it's not just about the age of the players. It's how many games that you played at the highest quality, how many games that you have been playing at the highest level. When you compare that, the age profiles might be the same, but the number of games that players in that team had played was way higher. We had a Rosicky. Rosicky was he was a star player at Dortmund before he came here. He had that experience. He was in his mid-20s. Leb, I agree. But Leb had also played in the German league and he had that experience. When you compare that, when you're 24, 25, and you have the experience of playing in a top 5 league, that is different. That's what I think I was mentioning this to someone yesterday. Even based on our transfer policies, it seems like we are going to be getting more people who are in their 25 or below. You cannot be an experienced player unless you start playing at 18 and you've been continuously playing for 7 years. And by the time you get that experience, otherwise you're still going to get inexperienced players. That team had a mix of experienced ordinary players and decently experienced young players. The back four was like Senderos and who else was there? If I remember, I think it was Giroud was there.
Yeah.
Toure, yeah. So you have someone like Toure. Who do we have equivalent of that in here? Toure was an invincible. Senderos was not a fantastic defender, but that midfield was functional. That defense work was functional. And you had Jens Lehmann. Yeah, we can talk about Ramsdale being a mentality monster and everything. But when you have Lehmann and Ramsdale, there's no comparison. There's one guy who can scream at the face of Thierry Henry if need be. Ramsdale or anyone else in this team cannot do that. So there is no comparison. In my mind, there's no comparison. Here, there, yes, you had a Fabregas, but around a Fabregas, you had so many other people. This is why I get pissed when people say that, yes, Wilshere at 19 was able to do so much more than Saka at 19. Saka at 19 has an ESR, Martinelli, Odegaard, who are about the same age as him, as people around him. Wilshere at 19 had a 16 or 17, had so many different players around him. He had a Van Persie, he had a Nasri, he had a Walcott, he had a Fabregas. We might say that, yeah, guys like Walcott are average, but the amount of experience that you gained is huge. It's different that he failed to translate it to anything big. But this 2006 and now comparison is, in my opinion, it's very good.
And that's internal to our team as well, right? But the other thing is the standard of the league is improved.
Definitely.
That's another thing, right? Now, like you
said, I'm not, for all those people who accuse me of being pro at it, I'm not trying to justify anything. It's just a comparison.
No, for sure. And just to finish that out, right? The level of the league is different. The standards are different. And when you said the Saka and the Wilshere comparison, Saka was part of a struggling team, out of which last year Christmas we were battling relegation. And he single-handedly almost bailed us out. Before the Chelsea 3-1 and things kind of turned around, ESR buzz, we were fighting relegation. That is not what we were. We were regular top four contenders. We were at different stages of, Arteta was struggling last year. And, he had to single-handedly bail him out. And we'll all agree on that. So, different standards of the league. You have smaller teams performing much better now.
Still bailing him out.
Oh yeah, they are definitely. There's no denying all that.
It's still like they're bailing him out.
So the last question, right? Before we go on to the Everton game, the last question is: do we take anything out of this game, Deepak? Especially because
one thing. Martinelli was good. After a long time, he had a really good game.
Yeah. Okay,
that is the only thing which I see as a positive. And White was really, even he made mistakes. We have a proper ball playing center back. He played like really good balls, which we didn't even utilize it properly.
It was like, if you take those two mistakes that he made out of the game, it was a fantastic game that he had, but the two mistakes completely negated everything.
Yeah.
So anyways, let's move on to the Everton preview, just to get that under what we have 20 minutes of time to talk about it, or 15, 20 minutes of time. So let's go ahead with the Everton preview, right? Everton are coming in with horrendous form, but we know Arsenal. So we know that if there is one team that could get them out of that horrendous form, it's Arsenal. So, let's start with the teams, right? Arun, I'll start with you, or no, I'll go to Suraj regarding this, right? Suraj, so does Tierney come back into the team?
Yes, and the reason, I'll give you a valid reason for this, why I feel, right? So one thing is, we talk about form, who's playing, irrespective of mistakes, Arteta defends them, all those things we've spoken about it. One thing we have to bear in mind, we have 7 games in December. Okay, so we have to rotate the squad, and we have to rotate so that we preserve them from injuries, and we don't let anything like a Xhaka level injury to happen to any of them. And we have to manage their fatigue, because they are not seasoned 27, 28-year-olds in their prime. They are 21, 22-year-olds. So we have to protect them. And assuming what is coming in Jan, he's probably thinking of AFCON and losing 4 players. So you have to manage the fitness of these players.
Will we really be losing players?
That is a different thing. Oba, Partey, Elneny, and Pepe. I don't know if
will we really be losing players?
But I think KT comes back in because it's a good. I think Nuno's played a good set of 5 games. Sure, share of mistakes. He's young. We like how vibrant he is. KT comes back in. Yes, for a rotation because we're playing Southampton in the weekend. So yeah. Okay.
So the other question, Arun, is: do we drop Elneny or do we drop Partey?
Elneny. I don't think. I mean, like I don't know what to say. Why is this even a question? Partey, Elneny has to be dropped. Yeah.
Elneny drops and Sambi comes back.
Because we have to win this game, and I don't see how we will win this game with Elneny in the team. So
or-
yeah,
or-
Elneny has to be
or
dropped.
you're not going with the Partey and Elneny being dropped and Amen and Sambi coming back into the team.
I'm as much as I would like to be radical and have that happen. I want to win this game. And I think out of the four midfielders that he had, the one who has reputation of at least having been a Rolls Royce of midfielders at some point in his time in his life is Partey. So based on that reputation, I will go with him.
Partey and Lokonga.
Lokonga, yes, he comes back. Somebody comes back.
Okay, so the most important question to Deepak, our front three. Who
Uh,
gets in, who gets out?
Oh, isn't it front four now? Like who's?
Okay,
Front four.
yeah, front four.
I
Um,
want ESR to be dropped. He hasn't been playing well.
But he
At
has
all
been the one
after-
who's scoring.
It is.
I
it-
think-
it is not like great goals or something. That goal is
Doesn't
not-
matter. We don't need great goals. We need goals. Like
See, he is
someone to
not
score
like
goals.
scoring because of like his own like things. He hasn't been playing well. He has been poor after the
Yeah.
international game break.
Adding to
He needs
that
a break.
reason, right?
So-
Sorry. No, I was just going to add to that reason on ESR. I think he should be dropped as well because of what he adds to his game. But he might also be fatigued. One
Yeah.
thing we need to bear in mind is from the international break when he got his England call up, he's been playing every game since then. And we have been saying he's been off color in the last couple of games because he's probably fatigued. He's still 20. So managing his rotation. Sorry to cut you off, Deepak. I just wanted to
Yeah,
add.
Deepak, go ahead.
Yeah, he looks leggy. I have never seen him like having like a full on. Yeah, he's 20, of course. So he needs rest. So yeah, obviously I need ESR dropped.
For Pepe.
Yeah, no, who else is there?
Martinelli and Saka or
Yeah, Martinelli, yeah, you can start Martinelli and Saka. I'm pretty sure Arteta won't drop Auba. He is going to start no matter what. So yeah, it's just Odegaard, Saka, and Martinelli. I don't think so. Pepe is going to get a chance. Even after seeing Old Trafford's game, he brought on Nketiah. I was like, okay, no, I think Pepe's time is up.
Goodbye, Pepe.
But okay, so the last thing, right? I wanted to touch about this thing. This whole thing is, we were talking about the Manchester United game, and in that we have mentioned that Lacazette was used as number 10 in the games preceding that as a stopgap solution. But if you take that out, if you consider the whole season, the Manchester United game in that number 10 scenario has not been different from anything before that. Like before we got Lacazette back, we were playing the same shit football where we were not able to create and we were not able to do anything. Just having Lacazette in there created something different and gave us some kind of victories.
That is because of Auba. Who is the one person like in all this shit show? It has been him. One person. Remove
One
him from the
constant
team.
in everything.
Yeah, remove him from the team. At least play Lacazette as a number 9 who is supposed to be as a striker and try something different. It is not even different. He's striker for a God's sake. Just start him as a striker. Even though he doesn't score goals, he brings at least the players around him a little bit more than Auba. So just start Lacazette. Yeah, that is another option. Start Lacazette as a striker, Saka, Pepe, or even Pepe, yeah, whatever it is. And then Ode as a number 10. And try something different. Drop Auba for at least once, for God's sake. Or
But
at least even he needs a rest. He has been starting.
But
Just
that's
give
not
the
going to
release.
happen. That's
Yeah,
not
that's
going
what
to
I'm
happen.
saying. It's not going to happen.
So, okay.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the players to watch out for. We call them the danger men. So let's jump into that. We know, Everton plays a 4-4-2, Suraj, right?
Yes.
So who are the players that you would say we have to look out for in the Everton team?
So 2 banks of 4, then 2 up top. I guess their best player in Tom Davies and DCL Calvert-Lewin are injured. I've seen the latest news. Their best player on the pitch is probably Doucouré. He's a solid midfielder. And we often tend to, I guess, lose out games because we're not so good in the midfield and we talk about it often. So Doucouré is someone to watch out for. And if he imposes himself in the game. It shouldn't be too much trouble. On paper, we are of higher quality, and I guess Richarlison's good in front of goal. But see, Everton, like you said, Everton haven't won a game since September. We are only going to make it difficult ourselves if we don't create enough chances. If they're playing 2 blocks of 4 and sit back like Newcastle, we might have to move the ball around quicker, and that's what I see. There's no technical like danger men as such who are going to completely trouble us, and we are our own danger men if we don't create.
So that's the other question, right? Who do you think in Arsenal would impact the game in a positive way for us?
Martinelli. Martinelli.
Yeah.
He's extremely eager to show what he can do, and he believes that if he does like get a good run of games, he can be. He knows that he can be like starting fixture in the team, wherever it might be in the front three. And he's also capable of playing in the front three. We've not seen him play as a striker a lot, but he knows that if he does grab a chance with AFCON coming up, there is going to be an opportunity. So definitely, yeah, Martinelli for me is the one who's going to probably be doing a lot. And I would also expect Odegaard to be trying a lot more as well, because this is again a game which possibly would give him a lot more options to be able to perform better. I don't think they'll close him down or attack him the same way that other teams do, given where Everton are. So I think he would also be getting opportunities. So for me, I would say Odegaard and Martinelli are the players that I would look out for from Arsenal's side. From Everton's side, I don't think there's really any threat that you can say, okay, this guy is going to be a game changer. Something. Had they played well and had DCL been a non-injured, then maybe we could have said yeah, he's going to be a nuisance. But I think Gabriel is more than equipped to take care of Richarlison. So I am, and their fullbacks have been horrible. So that's another opportunity for us. So I do not see any reason why we should be able to do well in this one.
Deepak, is Iwobi gonna come from bench and impact the game?
It's a possibility.
Really?
Not one that I think any of us would like to see, but
Yeah.
It is a definite possibility.
That shows you the level of us or level of Iwobi.
For us, for me, it's Martinelli. Even though he can't dribble properly, he just creates a nuisance of himself.
Yeah.
Something he does, and somehow he gets into the box. That's what we have been lacking till now.
Exactly.
No one gets into the box.
Yeah.
So Martinelli and of course no one else other than Saka.
But regarding Everton, are we still seeing a masterclass from Pickford? Are we gonna see a masterclass from Pickford?
I still don't have enough confidence in us to win this game. My mind always goes back to that Southampton 4-0.
Red, green, 4-0.
Red. I'm still thinking about that
one. Okay, so but the only problem for me with all this prediction is that we are going on with the idea that Martinelli will play. I am not sure that he will, especially with his injury situation and everything. I'm 90% sure that Arteta might drop him, claiming that he has to protect the player.
Or probably because he had a good game last game.
Arun, people are saying you're pro Arteta. Stick to that script, okay? Stick to that script.
All this we have to rest this 20-year-old, all this are some bullshit. No one goes and say we have to rest Rice. Declan Rice has been playing for 4 seasons from 19 years old constantly. Yeah. And we don't say that for Mbappe and stuff and all. Oh, we have to rest Mbappe. That's it.
Yeah, he gets his rest by himself.
But I guess Martinelli is coming back from a long-term injury as well, and he's coming back from a huge setback.
We have been always saying that Martinelli has been injured. He has been coming back from a long-term injury.
We have to ease him back in.
That's what Arteta won't change the team. It will be again ESR, Ode, Saka, and Auba.
Okay, so let's go into the predictions, because I think we have done enough for the Everton game. I don't see a lot of things to discuss about the Everton game, because Everton and Rafa is Rafa. He is not doing anything specific for Everton. They are not doing anything specific for themselves. So I don't see a point in us going in more detail. So let's do the predictions. right?
Mhm.
I'll start with Suraj. Suraj, predictions.
Professional 2-0. We might struggle to create, but I think defensively we'll be solid. We have to attack the right-hand side because we usually play through the left, right? Their right, Seamus Coleman and all that. So we should be able to capitalize. Professional 2-0, I think. One set piece, one goal, one
Okay.
open play goal. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah, are you gonna predict that Auba is gonna score the open play goal?
He could score a goal and completely backflip, and everyone can be just super happy.
Okay, Deepak, predictions.
Kind of a tricky game. I feel we might win, like given how we have been playing this season. Like let's say we have been winning against decent teams. But I will go with like the Southampton thing. I think we would lose 1-0.
Oh, we'll lose 1-0. Okay.
Lose 1-0.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay. Okay. Deepak is being Deepak today. Arun, your predictions for the game.
Ideally, I want the team to win 6-0. I want them to score 6 goals. But since that is not a possibility, I'll settle for a decent 2-0. I don't want them conceding a goal. That's another important thing. Goal difference is already pretty shitty, and we need like a lot of clean sheets right now to compensate for it as much as we need the goals. So I would go for a 2-0. I don't care like how we get the goals. I just want them to put a decent performance at least for a good 45 minutes and get me a good 2 goals.
Okay.
That's the only thing which is giving me a faint hope. How we have been performing against other teams this season.
Yeah. That's I would like. I don't want to drop that because the whole idea of me not being too concerned about us dropping points against top 6 is the fact that we should be able to win these games that we have to win. If an Everton is playing like shit and we can win that, we have to win. If we're also going to be losing the Everton game, then there's no point. We are not playing for the right things.
But I'm still going to stick with 1-0
To Everton.
You
Yes,
bastard.
That's what I'm saying. It keeps on coming back to me that Southampton.
So who makes the individual error then? Is it Auba own goal like Burnley, or is it like
I feel like Gabriel or Ramsdale. They have
Are
been
due
like
for-
on
they are
so
due
high.
for-
They are
due for
flying
a
high. Yeah.
Stop jinxing the jinx. Okay, so I'm going for a Arsenal victory with a 1-goal victory, maybe through a set piece or tap in of some sort. I'm not expecting us to concede any goal, especially against this Everton who are not creating enough, who are not doing enough. The only thing is they did score against Liverpool, even though they lost 4-1. So we can expect them to attack a little bit, but I don't see them, scoring against us. So thank you guys. Thanks for joining in. It's been nice talking to all of you today. I think, I need to add the whole like, share, and subscribe and comment in your.
Yes, don't forget that. Don't forget that.
Yeah, comment in anything that you want.
Click
in
on the
comment.
bell icon.
press the bell? Okay.
But we are very bad at promoting ourselves and we are very bad at doing this. But thanks for listening to us ramble on about the Manchester United game and about the Everton game. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining in. Hopefully, we'll see after the Everton victory. Bye.
Thank you very much,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.